on assessment task September 2025. So in terms of instructions and information, you are required to answer 3 sections, namely Section A, Section B, and Section C. Then the questions in Section A and Section B are compulsory. Answer any 2 questions in this particular section. Then you are reminded to read all questions carefully. Then number the answers according to the numbering system used in this question paper. Then also there is a need to write neatly and legibly. Now, moving on to the Section A, answer all questions in this particular section. So you are required to choose the correct letter for each particular scenario. So the first question reads, an example of chronic stress is, so the correct answer for this particular question would be constant anxiety about meeting the expectations of others. This will be our correct answer for that one. Then moving on to 1.1.2, an example of an environmental intervention program. An example of an environmental intervention program. All right, so the proposed answer for this particular question would be a campaign to empower communities on the benefits of recycling waste efficiently, which is the letter C. Then 1.1.3, a social media footprint is. When you're talking about a social media footprint, we are talking about the content a person shares and interacts with on social media that shapes their online identity. As you are interacting on social media, there is information which you share, or you call it content which you share, which ends up shaping your online identity. Then moving on to 1.1.4, the National Qualifications Framework provides a system that records the credits of each level of learning. So the correct letter there will be the letter C. Then moving to the next question, which is 1.1.5, the difference between indigenous games and traditional sports is that indigenous games. So we need to draw a distinction or a difference between the indigenous games and the traditional sports. So the main difference there is that indigenous games focus on recreation. They focus rather on recreation, while traditional sports focus on standard rules. Traditional sports, they are played using standard rules, whilst indigenous games are more of a recreation type of games. Now, the second instruction or the second verb, it requires us to give one word for each of the following descriptions. Write only the term or the word next to the question numbers in the answer box. So the South African law that helps disadvantaged groups with disabilities and racial minorities to get better opportunities. So this one is called the Employment Equity Act. This law is known as the Employment Equity Act. That is the law that helps disadvantaged groups or people with disabilities and racial minorities to get better job opportunities. Then moving on to 1.2.2, the ability to understand what a person is feeling and to see things from their own point of view. So our keywords is seeing things from their own point of view and also to understand what a person is feeling. So this is known as empathy. It is when you empathize or you put yourself in someone's shoes. This is known as empathy. The ability to understand another person, what another person is feeling, and to see their things from their point of view. Then 1.2.3 reads, a collection of documents, achievements, skills, certifications that shows an individual professional abilities and experience. So in this case, we can actually suggest the CV, or which is written in as the curriculum vitae. Then the second suggestion, I think we can also suggest that this can be known as a career portfolio, since it now contains skills, certifications, and achievements. So you can also suggest the career portfolio as an alternative suggestion, the career portfolio or the curriculum vitae. So that is 1.2.3. Moving on to 1.3.1, define the term cardiovascular endurance. The term cardiovascular, it refers to things which have something to do with the circulatory system. So the cardiovascular endurance can be defined as the ability, it is the ability of the heart. This is the ability of the heart, comma, lungs. This is the ability of the heart, lungs, and circulatory system. This is the ability of the heart, the lungs, and the circulatory system to supply oxygen to the bodies, to the body during sustained body exercise. So cardiovascular endurance, it refers to the ability of the heart, the lungs, and the circulatory system to supply oxygen to the body during sustained body exercise. So that is what we refer to as cardiovascular endurance. So moving on to 1.3.2. 1.3.2, it requires us to explain what is expected of you when answering a critically discussed question in an assessment task. So when a question says critically assess, you are supposed to examine, it requires you to examine various viewpoints and arguments. We can call them arguments. Various viewpoints or arguments related to the topic. So critically discussing is to examine various viewpoints or arguments that are related to a specific topic. That is what will be expected there. Then 1.3.3, it says discuss the importance of reading questions carefully during an examination. So by reading questions carefully will make you understand the demands of the question. It will make you understand the demands of the question. It will enable you. It will enable correct interpretation of the question. It enables correct interpretation of the question. In addition to that, it's careful reading of instructions. This is another alternative of instructions. Enables you to avoid mistakes. Mistakes or careless errors. It actually enables you to avoid mistakes or careless errors when you're answering questions. So as a result, you actually save more time and you feel much more confident. It also enhances confidence in your responses. It enhances confidence in your responses, and it saves time. So it is important when you're in the examination to read questions carefully during an examination before jumping to answering the question. Now, moving on to the next question. The next question will be question 1.4. 1.4 appears on the next page. So study the text below and answer the questions that follow. Tax fraud often sparks a debate about fairness and responsibility amongst citizens. Entrepreneurs face challenges in balancing their business growth while meeting their tax obligations. However, having tax-paying citizens is still vital to South Africa. Now, the question reads, give 2 reasons why it is considered to be an act of fraud if citizens are not paying taxes. So the first fact is that tax or not paying taxes, is an act done with intent to deceive. So the first point is that not paying taxes or tax evasion is considered to be an act which is done with intention to what? To deceive. So anything which is done with an intention to deceive, it constitutes or it forms part of fraud. That is actually a fraudulent activity. Then in addition to that, paying taxes is a legal obligation. Paying taxes is a legal obligation. It is a legal obligation. So failure to comply, it is considered to be fraud. To comply is fraudulent. Is considered to be fraud. So paying tax is a legal obligation, and failure to comply with it, it is actually considered to be fraud. Then in addition to that, you can also say that tax evasion results in financial harm of the fiscus in financial harm to the public. It has negative effects to the general members of the public. So tax evasion results in financial harm to the public. So we can also add the word harm there. It results in financial harm to the public. Remember, taxes are used to finance public services. So when one evades the payment of tax, it results in financial harm to the what? To the members of the general public. Then the second question reads, explain how entrepreneurs can effectively manage the tax obligations of their businesses. So the first thing which they need to do is entrepreneurs, they need to understand their tax obligations. They need to understand what is required of them. Their tax obligations. That is the first point. They need to understand what they are entitled to pay to the government. They need to understand their tax obligations. Then linking this to this, or as a second point, they need also to know the deadlines. They need to know the deadlines of tax returns. They need to know and to meet the deadlines. Not only know, but also to know and meet deadlines. Because you might know, but you might miss a deadline, so you need to know and meet the deadlines of tax returns. Then in addition to that, they also need to keep accurate financial records. They are supposed to keep accurate financial records so that they can determine what exactly do they owe the taxman or the South African Revenue Service. So they keep accurate financial records. That is the second thing which is required from them. So that is 1.4.2. Then moving on to 1.4.3. 1.4.3 reads, discuss how having responsible tax-paying citizens could benefit the country. So this one is a 2-mark question. So we need to write also in full sentences and also to explain how that takes place. So taxes, that is 1.4.3. Taxes fund essential services that improve the quality of life of citizens. That is the first point. Quality of life of citizens. So taxes are used to fund essential services that improve the quality of life of citizens. E.g., taxes are used to fund schools, hospitals, emergency services, etc. They're used to fund schools, hospitals, emergency services, then also safety. They are also used to fund the police and also the army. And in addition to that, they are also used to fund grants, social grants. So that's why we say that having responsible tax citizens could benefit the country. Taxes fund essential services that improve the quality of life of citizens. Taxes are used to fund schools, hospitals, emergency services, safety, and grants. Therefore, paying tax makes service delivery possible. It actually makes service delivery to become a reality or a possibility. Then I'm going to put also a bonus point. Then we can also say that taxes are used to fund infrastructure projects as a bonus, are used to fund the development of infrastructure. Taxes are also used to fund the development of infrastructure such as roads, such as bridges, e.g. roads, bridges, and even housing. So that is how having responsible tax-paying citizens could benefit the country. Simply because the tax which they pay, it finds itself in the government coffers, which the government would then use that money for funding national projects. Now, moving on to the next question. The next question will be Section B. So what we need to outline there in Section B is that all questions in Section B are also compulsory. Similarly, in question A. So answer all questions in this section, write your sentences in full sentences. So we are encouraged to write meaningful sentences, full sentences, instead of simply stating things. All right, read the extract below and answer the questions that follow. The recent sale of contaminated food products by some small businesses in communities raised serious concerns about public health and consumer protection and human rights. Media reports indicated that some businesses have been selling hazardous food products, impacting on safe and healthy living conditions in communities. Investigations revealed that many of these businesses were operating illegally, failing to comply with food safety regulations, thereby putting the community's health at risk. Although some of these businesses are owned by foreign nationals, the real issue is not about nationality, but rather the lack of enforcement of food safety laws and the non-compliance of certain businesses. However, some of these owners who have been accused of selling contaminated products have become victims of xenophobia in their communities, impacting on their mental well-being. The Bill of Rights protects individuals against discrimination, guarantees the rights of all individuals, regardless of their nationality. These public health and safety standards must align with human rights to protect consumers from harm. Addressing this crisis requires a collaborative effort from individuals, communities, and the government. Okay, the glossary: contaminated simply means food which is unsafe or harmful for human consumption. Then the first question reads, state how being exposed to contaminated food products may impact a person's right to healthy living. So, exposure to contaminated food can result in food poisoning, okay, it can result in food poisoning. Consumers end up suffering from they end up suffering from things such as diarrhea. Consumers end up suffering from diarrhea, abdominal pain, and suppression of immunity, and suppression of immunity. So by so doing, this would actually would negatively impact a person's right to healthy living. So exposure to contaminated food can result in serious cases of food poisoning. Consumers end up suffering from diarrhea, abdominal pains, and suppression of immunity. In some cases, it even leads to, in extreme cases, exposure to contaminated food leads to death. Contaminated results in loss of life, in death. So in extreme cases, this can actually result in death, or it can result in loss of life. So the next question reads, discuss one possible benefit of small businesses in communities. So the benefits of small businesses in communities, they are diverse. So the first is small businesses provide essential goods and services. Small businesses provide essential goods and services. You find that small business can be responsible for provision of food, for the provision of things such as groceries which are needed in the household. So they provide essential goods and services such as food, groceries. You can also include groceries or items needed in the whole household. In households, such as detergents. So that is the first benefit of small businesses. In addition to that, small businesses can also provide job opportunities. They can provide employment opportunities in the communities which they operate in. So that is 2.2. Describe one possible benefit of small businesses in communities. Now moving on to 2.3, which I'll take to the whiteboard. 2.3 reads, explain one factor that could increase xenophobic attitudes towards foreign business owners within communities. Within communities, what factors can introduce or can actually increase xenophobic attitudes? So I'm going to take this to the whiteboard so that we can write it on the whiteboard. All right, so this is 2.3. All right, the pressure or competition for resources can increase, it can increase xenophobic attitudes. It can increase xenophobic attitudes towards foreign-owned businesses. Local people might feel disadvantaged might feel disadvantaged when competing for resources like the market, when competing for resources like the market, or I can say customers in simple terms, or you can call them customers. They can feel disadvantaged when competing for customers with foreign owners. This might lead to resentment. This might lead to resentment of foreign owner, of foreign businesses. So that is how xenophobic attitudes can also be increased. Then in addition to this, just as a bonus, it can also be increased by economic factors. Economic factors, you need to also to include them there, such as unemployment, then in addition to that, just also the extra bonus, then also stereotypes which people might have. Or you can call it stereotyping. So that is 2.3. So now moving on to the next question. The next question reads, discuss the possible impact of discrimination on mental well-being of xenophobia. 2.4 would require us to discuss the impact of xenophobia on the mental well-being of victims. How do they end up feeling, the victims of xenophobia? All right, so I'm going to take it back to the whiteboard. That is question 2.4. Xenophobia negatively affects the mental health of the mental well-being of victims, in the sense that victims might suffer from stress and depression. The victims might suffer from stress and depression emanating from previous traumatic experiences. Emanating from previous traumatic experience. For example, if you see a victim being burnt to death, it might result in stress and depression, emanating from previous traumatic experiences. As a result, victims live in constant fear that a similar occurrence might occur. They will end up living in constant fear. Then victims can also feel depressed. Victims can feel depressed as they feel worthless and unwanted. And unwanted in the communities they live in. Victims can feel depressed as they feel worthless and unwanted in the communities they live in. Then this leads to hopelessness and despair. Despair and lack of interest in daily life. Lack of interest in daily life. So this is how xenophobia negatively affects the mental well-being of the victims. Now, moving on to 2.5, assess the responsibility of the media. If we go back to the question 2.5, assess the responsibility of the media in creating awareness. So what role can be played by the media in creating awareness on safe and healthy living? So we are taking it back again to them, to the whiteboard. So this is 2.5. All right, the role of the media in ensuring safe. So the first point which we need to make is that the media is responsible for disseminating information. The media is responsible for disseminating information. Media campaigns can educate the public or members of the public about nutrition, which is necessary for healthy living, the importance of exercise, the importance of hygiene, and how to prevent illness. This would promote healthy and healthy living. This would promote healthy and safe living. All right, moving on to the next point on how the media can also be of importance. The media can promote healthy behavior. The media can also be responsible for promoting healthy behavior, such as participation in sports programs. The media can also promote healthy behavior, such as participation in healthy programs, such as marathons, in participation in sports programs, in sports, e.g. marathons, community marathons, like the Soweto Marathon as an example. So in sports programs, fitness shows, and also, in addition to that, and campaigns that promote exercise. Then in addition to that, we can also say that the media can also give nutrition guidance on nutrition, on how to prepare nutritious meals so that people can fight against lifestyle disease, can give a nutrition guides through cooking shows. Which then promotes healthy and safe living. This then promotes healthy and safe living. So in this way, the media can also become involved. All right, then moving on to the next question, which is 2.6. 2.6 reads, recommend 2 ways in which the government could reinforce current laws that prevent the sale of contaminated goods. In each answer, also include how this can ensure safe and healthy living within communities. So the first thing is we are taking it back to the whiteboard, how government can Okay, let's go back to the question again. Recommend 2 ways in which the government could reinforce current laws that prevent the sale of contaminated goods. Okay, so the question requires us to address the issue of reinforcement. What are the ways which can be used to reinforce laws that prevent the sale of contaminated goods? So we are taking it back to the blank, to the whiteboard. Then this is 2.6. So there is need for constant revision of laws to keep up with new contaminants. There is need for constant revision of laws to keep up with new contaminants and global food trends. So the first point, let me try to explain this one. There's need for constant revision of laws to keep up with new contaminants and global food trends. Simply because of technology, we will find out that there are new contaminants which we are now coming across, which were not previously known. So at times, those new contaminants are not accommodated in the law. So there is need for the government to keep up to date with the new contaminants and global food trends. For example, there was a time when South Africa had an extreme case of listeriosis, whereby people ended up suffering from that particular from that particular contamination of food. So there's need for government to revise constantly their laws so that they can keep up with global food trends and also new contaminants. Then this would make players players in the food industry. This enforces accountability. This would make players in the food industry accountable if their products compromise people's health. So it will make them accountable if their product compromise people's health. So revise the laws. Then they should be mandatory certification. So when you talk about mandatory certification, this is a practice whereby businesses such as grocery shops, restaurants, markets, factories, and butcheries should be fully certified to ensure that their product do not harm the public. So there should be mandatory certification or compulsory certification to make sure that businesses do not provide goods which harm the members of the public. Then, all right, then there should be routine monitoring. There should be routine monitoring and inspection of these and inspection of outlets or of food outlets rather. Let me use the term food outlets. To ensure compliance. So they need to be constantly monitored to ensure compliance. So that is how the government can also be involved in these efforts to make sure that communities can live in a safe and healthy environment, and also they can consume safe and healthy food. So this brings us to the end of 2.6. Now moving on to question 3. Read the extracts below and answer the questions that follow. So I'm going to quickly read through this. Human factors causing ill health, smoking in adolescents, and adolescents, this refers to young people. Factors contributing to ill health can negatively impact an individual's health and future opportunities. Recent media reports indicate that there are high incidences of learners smoking in schools, probably due to the easy access of cigarettes and vapes. The normalization of smoking among young people has led to a rise in experimentation and addiction, affecting their health and academic performance. Social media plays a significant role in impacting the lifestyle choices of the youth of today. Poor habits and choices made early in life could have lasting effects on the overall long-term well-being and quality of life of individuals. A focused approach to personal well-being can help individuals make informed choices, thereby helping them to avoid harmful substances. Schools play an essential role in guiding learners towards positive habits by implementing effective measures. These measures could empower learners to make informed decisions that will benefit their long-term health. Now, define the term factors causing ill health. So when you're talking about factors causing ill health, so basically these are factors that do not arise. These are factors that do not arise from natural causes. Natural causes, but from how people live, act, and interact with the environment. So human factors that cause ill health, these are the factors that do not arise from natural causes. They are not natural in their origin, but rather they originate from people, how people live, how people act, and how people interact with the environment. Then describe one potential long-term health risk for young smokers. So one potential long-term risk for young smokers. The first thing is that cancer. Young smokers face a risk of suffering from cancer. They face a risk of suffering from cancer. Cigarette smoke contains harmful carcinogens. So carcinogens, we are referring to cancer-causing substances. So cigarette smoke contains harmful carcinogens which cause lung cancer, mouth or throat cancer. Mouth or throat cancer. So cigarette smoke contains several substances which can cause cancer. Then the second question, explain why learners who smoke are more likely to experiment with other substances. So for this one, I'm going to take it to the whiteboard for question 3.3. Let me take it to the whiteboard, 3.3. All right, 3.3. Explain why explain why learners who smoke are more likely to experiment with other substances. All right. Learners who smoke are more likely to experiment with other substances because they are often exposed to circles where alcohol and they are exposed to circles where alcohol and drug abuse are so common. So learners who smoke are more likely to experiment with other substances because already they're exposed to circles where alcohol and drug abuse is so common. They are already interacting with people who use drugs or people who abuse alcohol. So at the end of the day, it becomes easier for them to switch from ordinary smoking into taking other substances. Then in addition to that, you can also say that young smokers might experiment with young. They might experiment with other substances and alcohol as a method of seeking social acceptance. As a method of seeking social acceptance, young smokers might experiment with other substances and alcohol as a method of seeking social acceptance. Then, in addition to that, we need to move on to 3.5, or sorry, 3.4. 3.4, if you go back to the question, it reads, discuss two ways in which exposure to social media could promote the use of substances among the youth. So exposure, the youth. All right. The youth the youth the youth may become victims of online peer influence. So peer influence or peer pressure is not only restricted to the physical world, but it can also take place online. When young people see other young people consuming certain things, it might influence them in taking up or experimenting with substances. So this occurs when peers or friends share content or content. So content, it can be videos or pictures which might influence young people to experiment. So in this case, the youth would see their friends are consuming or abusing substances online. Then they'll end up partaking, or they'll end up feeling persuaded to take part in those activities. Then in addition to that, we can also say that young people can end up imitating their lifestyle, the lifestyle of famous celebrities and influencers who are involved in substance abuse. They will end up imitating influencers who are involved in substance abuse through seeing them on various social media platforms. Then they will end up imitating the social influencers. And they can also, young people can participate in hashtags. They may end up taking part in trendy challenges. In trendy challenges, hashtags which involve substance abuse. So in this way, young people can end up imitating the lifestyle of famous celebrities and influencers who are involved in substance abuse. So already we do have some famous celebrities who are already involved in substance abuse, and most of the time they communicate this kind of information to young people through music videos or through pictures. So young people may end up taking part in trendy challenges, hashtags which involve substance abuse. So that is 3.4. Now, moving on to 3.5. 3.5 reads, recommend two measures that could be implemented by schools to discourage learners from smoking. So schools can recommend the following measures, or we can recommend the following measures for schools. All right. So schools can include parents and family, can include or involve parents and families in school-based prevention programs. In school-based prevention programs. As a result, learners receive support at home and at school. Learners would receive support at home and at school. So schools can include parent, family, and families in school-based prevention programs. As a result, learners can receive support and at school, which then minimizes chances of substance abuse. It then minimizes the chances of substance abuse. Then, in addition to that, also the schools can introduce peer-led. They can introduce peer-led programs where students are trained to share information, about the dangers, of smoking, to share information about the dangers of substance abuse. This would mitigate cases of substance abuse as it will act as positive peer influence. So instead of it being negative peer influence, it would act as positive peer influence. At times, young people get to listen when information is coming from other young people rather than being imposed by adults. So the schools can introduce peer-led programs whereby students are trained to share information about the dangers of substance abuse. This would reduce cases of abuse as it would act as positive peer influence. Now, moving on to the next question, which is 3.6. So 3.6, we'll try to squeeze it in here. 3.6. 3.6 reads, assess the significance of a personal lifestyle plan in helping young people to avoid substance abuse. Designing your own personal lifestyle plan, how does it help young people in avoiding substance abuse? So the first point is that a personal lifestyle plan, personal lifestyle plan actively builds it actively builds a fulfilling it actively builds a fulfilling, healthy and structured life. When you have a personal lifestyle plan, it actually helps you build a fulfilling and healthy builds a fulfilling, healthy and structured life. Your life would have proper structure. That makes substance abuse unnecessary. That makes substance abuse unnecessary. It eliminates substance abuse and undesirable. So what are we saying here? Basically, we are saying that if you have a personal lifestyle plan, which involves some of the following activities, such as exercising frequently and also getting spiritual assistance, it can be through attending church or even being part of a religious group, it actually builds a fulfilling and healthy or structured life, which makes substance abuse unnecessary and undesirable. By focusing on positive attitudes, on positive habits, on positive habits, by focusing on positive habits, you will be addressing addiction as well. So a personal lifestyle plan can involve being part of a sports team. So by being involved in such activities, it simply means that you end up addressing the issue of of addiction. You won't become a victim of various forms of addictions. So that is what we call a lifestyle plan. Then, in addition to that, we can also say that by becoming involved in community projects, You become more occupied and absorbed, leaving little room for distractions. So it leaves little room for distractions as you stick to a healthy routine. You'll be sticking to a healthy routine. So that is the first part, the last part of 3.6. So moving on to the next question, or the next section rather. So for the next section, we go back and highlight the key instruction there. It says answer any two questions in this section. So when you're in the actual examination, you'll be required only to pick up two questions. So there are three questions all in all, but you will be required to answer only three questions. All right, so the first question reads, okay, before we even go to the first questions, your responses must consist of paragraphs. So it is important to make sure that responses are written in paragraph form. So marks will only be allocated for responses written in full sentences. So in this case, you avoid one-word answers. Must write answers in what? In full sentences. So the first question reads, briefly, okay, before we go to the question, labor laws, workers' rights, obligations in the workplace. A recent investigation into South Africa's restaurant industry has revealed that some restaurants failed to comply with labor laws, and young workers were reluctant to report such violations. So young workers are reluctant to report such violations. So the next question would say, write paragraphs on labor laws. Use the following as a guideline. Briefly state four ways in which young employers could ensure that labor laws are successfully implemented within their organizations. Briefly state four ways in which employers. So the question requires from the employer side, not from the employees, that labor laws are briefly state four ways in which employers could ensure that labor laws are successfully implemented. So for this one, I would say that employers needs to establish, the employers need to establish clear written policies. There must be clear written policies covering various aspects of labor law. There must be clear written policies covering various aspects of labor laws or regulations. E.g., disciplinary issues, and leave policy. So this is the first one. Then the second one, employers should educate. Employers should educate they should educate employees, and management. They should educate employers and management about labor regulations, about labor laws. Then in addition to that, employers are required to maintain accurate records. They are supposed to maintain accurate records. Accurate records Then finally, employers should handle grievances. They should handle grievances effectively, operating within the legal framework. They should handle disciplines efficiently, operating using the legal framework. So that is the first part or the first bullet of the question. So for the second bullet, I'll take it to the whiteboard. Analyze how inappropriate behavior of some trade union members could have a negative impact on their work environment. So we need to acknowledge that trade unions are actually there to represent the interests of what? Of workers. But at times, their behavior might be considered to be inappropriate. And so the question requires us to determine how this could have a negative impact on the work environment. So how can this negatively affect the relationship between the employer and the employee? So I'm going to take this one to the next, to the whiteboard. So for this one, inappropriate behavior inappropriate behavior inappropriate behavior by trade unions can negatively affect the productivity of the company. For example, for example, strikes go slows which are not protected or properly sanctioned, which are not properly sanctioned, can lead to supply chain glitches which can affect the productivity which can affect the profitability of a company. Of a company. All right, it might affect supply chain, the supply chain management systems, which might affect the probability of the profitability of a company, resulting only because of frequent strikes, lack of productivity in company closures, and job losses. So that's the first thing. Then, all right, inappropriate behavior by trade unions may result in disinvestment, that is when investors decide to pull their money away from a particular company. Disinvest by investors as they fear for their investments in a way that is sustainable in the long run. Then moving back to the next question, or moving to the next question rather, evaluate the impact of on a young worker who reports labor law violations in the workplace. So as a young worker, when you report labor law violations, what impact does it have on your well-being or on your professional relationship with others? So for this one, we'll go back again to the whiteboard. We'll go back to the whiteboard again. All right, so this is question, we are still on question 4. So reporting labor law violations by a young worker can have mixed results. It can actually have mixed results for the young worker. Young workers are often victimized in the workspace because of their desperation, because of their desperation and lack of experience, because of their desperation and lack of experience, because of their desperation and lack of experience, it becomes difficult for young workers, and whilst staying in the confines of the law. While staying in the confines of the law. So that is the first thing. Now moving on to the second bullet. All right, there is when young workers participate in whistleblowing, there is a high risk of retaliation there is a high risk of retaliation from employers some unscrupulous employers might Blacklist young people since their reputation is fragile. Since their reputation is fragile. So being labeled, for example, young people, young workers can be unfairly labeled as troublemakers. They can be unfairly labeled as troublemakers or not being a team player. A team player after reporting a violation. A violation. This would negatively affect the reputation, the reputation of a young worker, denting chances of future employment. It actually severely dents the chances of future employment. So that is how whistleblowing can affect a young worker in the professional space. So that is the impact of on a young worker who reports labor laws in violation of the workplace. Now, question 5, read the extracts below and answer the questions that follow. The media being cyber savvy, that is the heading, write paragraphs on media, use the following as a guideline. Write paragraphs on media using the following as a guideline. All right, so the first thing, briefly state 4 ways to maintain cyber safety while developing online skills to maintain briefly state 4 ways to maintain cyber safety while developing online skills to counteract unemployment. So it reads, briefly state 4 ways to maintain cyber safety while developing online skills to counteract unemployment. So for this one, some of the ways in which you can ensure cyber safety when you are applying for jobs or when you are doing online business are the following methods. So I'm going to list the different methods above them. All right, so while developing online skills, to counteract unemployment, or let's say when unemployment, you need to limit the amount of personal information shared, of shared personal information. That is the first thing. Limit the amount of shared personal information, as this can be used against you. by cyber criminals. So make sure that you limit the amount of shared personal information. Then secondly, change passwords frequently. Frequently. Then secondly, never share your passwords. Never share passwords. Then use strong passwords. Passwords using special characters, lower and uppercase. Use strong passwords. In addition to that, you can also say that you need to be skeptical of suspicious. Be skeptical of suspicious emails. So do not just treat all emails as if they are genuine. Be skeptical. So all these are 4 ways to maintain cyber safety whilst developing online skills. Just as an addition, you can also say that continuously update softwares, update software and apps and applications. Then in addition to that, back up your data. Your data needs to be backed up. So that is what is required. Now, let's go to the next bullet. Analyze how being cyber savvy could help young people counteract unemployment. So being able to use technology in a very, very efficient manner, it can actually unlock so many opportunities. For example, being cyber savvy can open up opportunities of remote work. So instead of working in one place, you can actually work remotely. You can work for a company based in America or here, you're based in South Africa. So being cyber savvy can open up to opportunities of remote work. You can be employed anywhere in the world. So with solid digital skills, digital skills and tools, individuals can thrive in remote work positions. Individuals can thrive in remote work positions, expanding their jobs beyond logical geographical limitations. Expanding their jobs beyond geographical limitations. So that is the first thing. So people, instead of relying on being employed in one particular country, they can actually work remotely. They can actually work remotely. So, by so doing, cyber savvy youth can counteract unemployment. So let's move on to the next one. The next one, we can also say that cyber savvy young people an e-commerce business which can allow them to offer products online, products or services online or on digital platforms. So by so doing, they generate or they create their own employment as a result or subsequently fighting unemployment. As a result, they will be fighting unemployment. All right, then just a bonus point, being cyber savvy, youths can effectively conduct job hunting online due to enhanced online presence, cyber savvy. So this is a bonus point which you can also include. All right, so then we need to move on to the last bullet, evaluate the significance of print media advance digital world. I think you're aware that most of the media that we are coming across is actually digital world, digital media, which is disseminated by electronic devices. But at the same time, print media remains of so much importance in today's world. So I'm going to take you straight to the whiteboard so that I can demonstrate how print medium remains of importance. So we are going to be discussing the importance of print media. How does it remain significant? So this is question 5. It's a continuation of question 5. Question 5. Okay, print media remains significant in the digital age. Print media remains important. It remains important in the digital age. In the digital world, in the digital age, because of its tangibility. It is something which is tangible, and it is considered to be more credible. Be more credible. For example, people are more likely to, are going to believe what they read in a physical newspaper rather than an article which they read online. It is considered to be more credible, or it is much more trustworthy, according to people. People tend to trust printed newspaper articles. People tend to trust printed newspaper articles, adverts, rather than more than those posted posted more than than those posted on digital platforms. More than those posted on digital platforms. So print media is considered to be more credible, more trustworthy than digital media. So this is the first point. Then moving on to the next point again. So print media is an advantage. Print has an edge over, it has an edge over digital media because it demands active attention from the audience. Usually it requires the actual reading of the text. So magazines, for example, magazines, newspapers, books and pamphlets. Books and pamphlets, magazines, books and pamphlets encourage deeper reading. They encourage deeper reading of texts, which leads to better retention of information. You can retain the information better of information and emotional connection. It also enhances emotional connection. So that is how it works. Then just as a bonus point, all right, print media enhances focus. Print media enhances focus and minimizes distractions. As compared to digital media. So digital media is often cluttered. There's so much clutter when it comes to digital media in the form of adverts. With pop-up adverts notifications, etc., which may disrupt the reader or audience. So therefore, we are saying that print media remains of much importance in as much as we now are experience or we are now in the digital age. Print media remains a priority. It remains a priority in today's in today's age, simply because of its obvious advantages which we have discussed. Now let's move on to the next question, which is question 6. Read extracts, the extract below, and answer the questions that follow. Recruitment, that is when you hire people, general trends and practices. Current recruitment processes are driven by technology and data analytics with strong focus on candidates' work experience. Therefore, choosing the right references to list in your curriculum vitae and researching a company's mission statement may lead may be to your benefit when you are considered for a job. Write paragraphs on the recruitment process. So use the following as a guideline. Briefly state 4 factors to consider when adding someone as a reference. So when you're adding someone as a reference on your interview, you need to include, you need to consider the following factors. So when you're adding someone as a reference to your curriculum vitae, you need to consider the following things. Relevance to the job. Is that person relevant to the job which you are applying for? So there is need for relevance to the job. Don't just refer or put anyone as a reference. How is that person related to the job which you're applying for? Then we also consider the recency of the relationship. The recency of the relationship. How long have you been knowing that particular individual? How recent is your relationship? Then we also need to consider the credibility. How credible is that character? Then we also need to consider the authority. What position do they occupy? Authority of the referee or of the reference. So those are the 4 factors which you need to include. Then briefly analyze the importance of researching a company's mission statement. So when you research a company's mission statement, it's actually researching a company's mission statement researching a company's mission statement enables you to tailor suit your CV to match the values and expectations of that company. This would make your CV stand out and become relevant to the company's mission. Thereby increasing your chances of landing the job. Of landing the job. The job. So that is the first point. You need to research the company's mission statement, which enables you to tailor suit your CV to match the values and the expectations of that particular company, which would make your CV to stand out, enabling or increasing your chances of landing the job. Then it also researching on the mission statement demonstrates genuine interest in the job, the hiring manager might consider you to be a suitable candidate. A suitable candidate through demonstrating to the company. All right. Then researching a mission statement of an employer. An employer enables you to compare your personal mission statement, your personal values and theirs. This enables you to make a well-informed decision about taking a job offer. So it informs when you're making a decision about taking up a job offer. It makes you get a candidate with more experience because of their clients or customers, of their clientele or customers. All right. Most clients prefer to work with seasoned professionals. Most clients, they prefer to work with seasoned professionals. For example, when you're hiring a lawyer, I think when you're hiring a lawyer, it is more experience is valued, is are valued and is often seen. It is often seen as synonymous or similar to credibility and competence. So in the fields of consulting, the more experienced you are also considered to be more credible and more competent, unlike someone who is fresh from college or a fresh graduate. So managers, that's why they tend to hire candidates with more experience because of their client or their customers. So it can be influenced by clients or customers. Clients are much more comfortable working with people with vast amounts of experience. All right, so the same. Let's do the second. Many managers are reluctant to hire inexperienced. Many managers are reluctant to hire many managers are reluctant to hire needs to be because such candidates need to be trained. So training is usually a costly and time consuming exercise. Training is usually a costly and time consuming exercise. It is a time consuming exercise. It is a costly and time consuming exercise. So this can affect productivity because a person needs to be trained first before they engage in productive work. And increase costs. This can affect productivity and increase the overhead costs. So by considering in addition to that, it saves time. This also saves time as the experienced worker will be ready to work immediately. So the worker will be ready to work immediately. So that is the last point for this particular question. So basically, I would just want to do a recap. It is important in section C to write full sentences, and you also need to follow them procedure whereby you state your point, you explain your point, you also provide examples if possible, then you also link it. So in other words, you need to state a statement, provide a qualifier and also an outcome to that particular statement. So this brings us to the end of this